Even if you're a medium-sized business, there are still things you can do that allow you to drive up value and conversions and all these different things. And sometimes we just miss them. We don't pay attention and we miss them.
You're about to hear a conversation between two agency owners who collectively have over 30 years of experience helping brands sell millions of dollars. Enjoy the episode.
When you're talking about a hook, as we were saying about it, I think it is important that you, as you're saying, establish a little bit of credibility. So depending on what it is that you're looking for example, it was very common when before I had the agency and I was looking for jobs that you had to like list things that, were like numerical. So a lot of like, hey, responsible for managing a $5 million budget for X, Y, and Z, or, being a part of a team that raised $120 million worth of sale in a period of 1 year. So those are really good, hooks. The problem is that, I believe that in our terms, it would be like, I would have to go to all of our clients, find out like a number and then say, I'm responsible for increasing this much amount of X for the time being. Other companies, other people, for example, I do with these my clients, if they have seen, and they appear on the Miami Herald or Orlando Sentinel, Fox News, CNN or whatever, then we try to grab that because then the fact that you made it to a medium like TV or something like that, it just also gives you that credibility that supports you. But I also done the whole thing about, this is more for a smaller business or a medium-sized business, like, check out our reviews. Like that is also a great thing. And even if you only have like 3 to 4 stars, you should always still check out the reviews, because if people do see your reviews and they see that one of them just doesn't, there was no parking in the building, it's like, okay, like does that really say about the treatment of you and the work and all that stuff? So people are very, very, good on that. I think it would be interesting if we could come up with, like a hook that we can also say. I think that the fact that we have, this communal thing that works, or also sometimes it's just a matter of digging in deep. For example, Castleberry, your agency, you create AIs. You have your own AIs. You actually have worked in this, in this platform before the term was cool. So then you can actually say, what, an established company that has been doing AI work for B2B companies for this long period of time, that also, incorporates that. Or, person who has worked with multi-million-dollar brands. The agency that we worked, we were with Sachi. Sachi we had responsible for recommending keys, but then I could tell somebody that is in the agency, yeah, I work with Sachi and Sachi. Oh, that's great. And then it's like, okay, who is that? If you're not in the world, you probably don't know. So you have to say like, Head and Shoulders, Durex, blah blah blah. You have to like start mentioning things that were like, okay, cool. But I think a lot of it just deals with the actual knowledge.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think it goes back to that principle of influence. Remember, we were going to talk about the book. What was it called?
The Power of
Yes,
Influence.
this one. And there's a principle that says the principle of authority. And I don't know if you remember this, but there's actually a video online that sort of summarizes the book, and it talks about one of the examples it gives is somebody implements something very, very easy, which is when they get a phone call, the person says, "Oh, okay, let me put you through to Romulo, who has over 30 years of experience in this area. He'll be able to help you." And they transfer the call. And you actually do have over 30 years of experience. Well, maybe 10, 20, whatever it is, whatever the number is. You're saying the truth. You're saying how many years.
I'm younger than that.
I know.
I'm
But you say the truth, and then you transfer the phone call, and that bumped it up to like 23%. I don't know what the number was.
Yeah.
It was like costless, ethical. You know what I mean? Like it was just something. It cost nothing to implement. It's very simple, and it's those sort of things that like drive additional value to businesses, but people don't know about them, so they don't implement them. So I think if we're talking, even if you're a medium-sized business, there are still things you can do that allow you to drive up value and conversions and all these different things. And sometimes we just miss them. We don't pay attention and we miss them.
one thing that kind of just brought that and you remember me that when I used to do networking events, people would give you like your business card, and some of the business cards were like Romulo Martinez, and then you put comma MBA or your title, which probably wasn't relevant to what people were used to do in business cards, but then the fact that you have some sort of title at the end of your Esquire for lawyers, you get your MD, it also gives you a little bit more of like, oh, okay, so I have some sort of presence or understanding on that. But yeah, the other one too is that I know that we're very incredibly good looking, so we can also use the halo effect
Yeah.
for us and just put a picture in that. But no, I was really proud of Nicholas too. The whole halo effect thing, it's also really really funny because it's like you just put somebody that like just kind of seems that they look good, they look like they're well put together, and they're like, well, I trust that individual. That individual knows where he's going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why people wear ties and
Yeah.
investment bankers and dress up and everything. That's why those lawyers have those big offices. By the way, you ever been in the offices of like a big law firm? They'll have a fountain in the middle of the office and
I remember,
statues, and then you can have two thoughts. One is how expensive are these guys? They're like they can afford a swimming pool sized fountain in the middle of this thing in this huge building in New York. Like how expensive is this? But then it's also signaling I'm very good at my job and I do a lot of business, et cetera. Right?
that was one of the concepts too when I worked for at that time Mercantile Commerce Bank. That when you go into the bank building, it's like marble,
Yeah.
and you are like obvious money. There's definitely this
Yeah,
is a success.
solid.
I will not solid. I know that this is not going to be some sort of operation that one day the bank is there, next day it's just like empty houses. And you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, imagine if it were like I don't know a teepee hut or something, where like you know what I mean, like one of those beach bungalows, and that's the bank. The idea in your mind, it could be the exact same bank, but the perception.
He's like, he's just like wearing like board shorts and like a little tie. How can I help you?
Yeah, that's how you feel at Tribute Bank sometimes.
We we have yeah, no, we done some research on that, and then the other one is like, yeah, so I need a wire transfer, and they were like, oh, the system is down right now, and you're like, okay, so when is the system going to be up? Well, right now we're just changing faxes, so that's the problem why we're not working. And you're like, we're still using a fax. This is like
Yeah.
this is about 2 years ago when this happened to me.
Really? Wow.
Oh yeah, the system is down, and I'm thinking that like, man, the bank is going through some issue with the system. No, it was just the fax machine at the branch was not working. I'm like, what is?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of signaling. Obviously, you have to do it with. It has to be real, right? Like it's got to be. Um, but that signaling works. If you're able to understand how to implement it, I think it really helps. Which is why doctors put up their diplomas and they put, I went to Harvard and I did this and all these different things that makes you trust them. So I think there are several ways businesses can do that, and a lot of them aren't doing that. At least not yet. I mean, they all know. Most people know. I have to put reviews, let's put the logos of the clients we've worked with, and that kind of stuff. But it can be a lot more tangible. You know what I mean? Like it can be like, um, let me show you exactly what we did for this client, or um, for example, one of the things that I think we've talked about this is we're actually capping the number of clients we're taking every year. For several reasons. But one of the reasons is we want to maintain a high quality of deliverables. So we have to cap it at some point. And obviously we want to grow as a business. So we're going to add more people to the team, et cetera. So that cap is going to grow. Like if it's at 20 now, it'll be 30, then 50. Then we'll figure out a way to scale it. But we don't want to say we can take on as many clients as whoever comes through the door and that's it. But it also signals. It also signals to the market, okay, these guys only have a limited availability. If I want to work with them, it's got to be now. It's not something that
It's the whole concept of the forbidden fruit.
for
You want it because there's just a lack of it, and they need it. And yeah, what is it that they know that we don't know?
yeah, there's some of that.
That's good.
There's a number of things that happen there.
I remember one of those odd jobs that I took like post college. He was also in the marketing world because it was like promotions and stuff like that. But I was working for promotions for a club in Scottsdale, And then one day they were like, "Hey, dude, would you like to work at the door today?" And I'm like, "I guess I." What do I have to? I'm like 5'8" and like 150 pounds wet. And the guy's like, no, what you got to do is just look at the list, pretty much tell people not to come in for a while. And I'm like, and then just check IDs. And I'm like, okay. But it would be funny because I'm like, oh, okay, they let people in. Like, let too much people in. And I'm like, but the club is kind of empty. Now you got to let people wait until until 11:30. And then I'm like, but people are gonna get mad and leave. Just this is what you're just with. I'm like, okay, well,
And
I guess
that's that's another principle, right, of influence is scarcity. Remember
yeah.
about it and the example I give in the book is that the Concorde, the airplane, the Concorde was going to stop flying, and ticket sales went through the roof because everyone was okay. If it's not going to be around, I need to get on it. They sold out immediately. Louis Vuitton and these big brands, they artificially like create scarcity. So you go, your wife goes to buy a bag or something, and they'll, no, there's a waiting list. There's a 3-year waiting list. You can't just buy them.
Well, the restaurants too. I mean, now it's like it is kind of getting a little too produced. And when it's scarcity too produced, you cannot feel it. So you have to be there's a balance on that. But yeah, there's like restaurants like, you want to go eat in the best sushi restaurant in Japan. That's a 5-year wait.
Yeah.
And you have to like pretty much pay like now up front. And it's like, okay, I guess I get it. There's demand, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. But and maybe that one is a legit situation where you have to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they started doing that a lot with cars, like the Chevy Blazer with Eddie Bauer limited edition, blah blah blah. Then it became one of those things that okay, so sales go up. It's that trick to bump up sales. Then it goes down, and then the next time it's Land's End. Get your Blazer with Land's End, and it just goes up. So then what happens is that these gimmicks eventually, probably you hit it twice and it works, and the third time it's like, I don't need it to do it right now. There's no need for me to feel this scarcity. I need to buy it now situation. It works really well on the consumer side on product consumption, like if for the supermarkets and things like that.
Yeah, I think
like limited style Oreos.
Yeah, but it works really well in luxury goods as well. That's sort of the definition, right? That not everybody can afford it, and not everybody can have it. And so, if you create that artificial scarcity and that demand, you get that tension, right, between, people wanting to buy and what you have to offer. And then obviously they can charge whatever they want. Like they'll, I was listening to this on a podcast. They were saying like Rolex, well, we'll buy a Rolex. They'll say, okay, there's a 2-year waiting list. You sign up, and then they'll call you and say your Rolex is available, but we need to hear back from you. I think it's in 48 hours. I don't know how much time they give you. But if you don't confirm, we're going to give it to the next person on the waiting list because the waiting list, and then you'll go back to the bottom of the waiting list. And so people are like, okay, wait, hold it for me. I'll be right there.
That person's waiting for that email for like 2 years.
Right. And then you have to decide immediately. And then obviously it plays against you because then you're like, okay, there's scarcity and there's a time limit. And I've got to do it now. It's sort of like it's in the book as well, where I don't know if you remember this, but the guy was trying to sell a car and he would have the people come right after each other. I don't know if we talked about this.
Yeah. We have mentioned it before that it's you have the appointment at 11:15 and the other appointment you have at 11. You know that you're not going to get to sell that car in half an hour.
Right.
At least they're not saying you're in the middle of the thing. It's like, oh, but
yeah, there's another buyer. Wait, hold on. It just plays against you, dude. It's so hard. And so I think one of the things I would suggest is for people who sell sort of B2B, right? That normally have a presentation, you go and give a presentation, and in B2B it'll be like 3 months before they decide, and all these different things. And I think one of the things you could do is say, okay, let me grab the 7 or 8 principles of influence. Let me go through my sales presentation and let me make sure I have each one of those principles at some point in the presentation so that I'm, driving home all those things that influence people. Obviously ethically without lying or saying something that's not true, but I think if you were to do that exercise, not you particularly, but like if people were to do that exercise, I think they could benefit from all those principles. And it's what Charlie Munger, the investor, what he calls a Lollapalooza effect, which is you have a number of these things working together Because if you only have the authority principle, you're showing the logos, you're doing okay, perfect. You have one. But if you have all 7 or 8 of them, and they're all working in tandem, then you start getting these big upsides. And it should be something sort of easy to implement and not very difficult to go through, right? And you can do that the same thing with your marketing materials. You can do the same thing with your sales page. With
It-
you know,
and some of them are very simple to do. I mean, as you say, mention the logos. I have a client who just pretty much is like, so okay, you're being 25 years in business. It's great. That takes a lot of time and definitely, for sure you to survive. What are the brands that you have worked with? And then they like mention out of the top of the head like 5 or 6 brands that are locally like that are well known in the city that people understand that are like household names, let's say. And then I'm like, well, we definitely need to put that into your marketing material up front because I don't have to anymore. I don't have to work anymore on trying to justify that you are great and that you do excellent work because you're already having these brands of these companies that are very well, respected and household names that are already using you. So I don't have to kind of like leverage that. I should still do the due diligence and explain what we do, yes, but just on the first image, just putting those logos out there, pretty much
yeah,
helps your
yeah, right off the bat. And then there are other things, right? You could say like, um,
we could do that. We can actually, talking about we were talking at the beginning of the conversation. It's just just list all the brands that we have worked with.
yeah, you could do that. Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. I think so. So that's one. The other one I think is interesting is there's a new principle that came out. I don't know if you heard about this. Robert Cialdini, the creator of the whole book,
Yeah,
author. Um, he
XT channel.
there's a
I took a class with him, so he was my professor for a day or for a period of time. Yeah.
great. Yeah, there's a new principle called unity, the principle of unity, and it basically states that when people feel like they're part of the same unit, um, or they feel united in a way, then they're more likely to do business with you. They're more likely to comply with whatever you're asking.
Is this kind of like the same concept as being part of a tribe, or you're talking about no? This
No, no,
is
no, a tribe. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for example, if you're, let's say I'm trying to pitch you, and then I'm like, oh, well, I used to live in Venezuela, and where did you live? And then we start talking about that, and then you feel a lot closer to me because we share that common experience. Or like, oh, Inter Miami is awesome, and maybe that's your team, and blah blah blah. And Messi,
what is the other one? You're like in the middle of a bunch of people meeting together, and all of a sudden you say like, "Oh yeah, so what do you do?" And nothing is hitting, and you're like, "Oh yeah, so my fraternity. Oh, fraternity. Which one was it? Kansas City. Oh yeah, open the door. We're best friends now." And it's
yeah,
like, you know,
yeah. Oh, like I went to Harvard too, and then you have immediate connection. And and he had missed that in the original book. It's not there. And then he sort of realized, okay, well, this actually does influence people. Like if we're from the same team and I'm wearing my Inter Miami shirt, and I ask you if I can, I don't know, borrow something or borrow your phone and make a phone call, you're more likely to say, okay, well, this person is like me. Let me.
yeah, I understand. This is my people.
Yeah.
In China, when I lived there, so I lived in my Chinese is horrible. Is the lack of it. So but there is in Beijing and in Seoul, Shanghai, and it's just like a huge international community. So pretty much your language of choice is always English, but then it would be anybody who just look like a foreigner to say that they pretty much we all communicate in English. But it was very 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 interesting how people just for business purposes or for just the security, like the way that they would refer to other people within, like, the same country or the same part of the world, because sometimes you could be like, hey, you know what, I'm Venezuelan, you're Brazilian, we're from South America, we at least have some sort of connection. Like, kind of like, I know my people, but I was really, really interesting because I have, over there, I had like a Bulgarian friend, and he would pretty much refer to, people from, Russia, Bulgarian, Ukrainians, things like that. They're like, this is for that. Like they were just like, no, yeah, we're all from the same kind of cloth, or like the same type of person. So we all understand each other. So I know exactly what they need. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's why it's easier for you guys to separate you into different places. Because over there, it was easier to like kind of spot that and make
Yeah.
it unique to tribe.
Yeah, it happens all the time when you travel too. Like oh, you speak Spanish. Oh, you speak English. Where are you from? Maybe they'll be like, oh, I'm from Milwaukee, and you'll be like, I'm from the U.S. too. Like I'm
Yeah.
from
I went to school in Wisconsin.
right,
Yeah.
and then there's immediately like you're connected.
Here too. Here it happens with the Midwestern. Like if you're from Minnesota, and then you're from Wisconsin, and you're from Michigan, Ohio, they all like, oh yeah, we are from the
Right.
we are from the Midwest. We all understand each other.
Yeah, and so but it only works if you're not there. Like if you're
Yeah.
somewhere else, then you look for that for your tribe, and that's something you could also apply in your sales pitch or your marketing. You could say like, "Oh, well, you're a marketer. Where have you worked?" Even if they're like, "Oh, I worked at this company," you're like, "Oh, I worked at this other company that's not that one, but it was the same industry or very similar, and I had these troubles. Did you find the same experience?" And like being able to sort of connect in that way could be part of the sales pitch, right? Uh,
Yeah.
like, oh, like
Um,
that country. Oh, you're from Bulgaria. I've been there. I loved it. Blah blah.
even being a parent,
What's-
being
yeah,
a parent of a small kid also makes you very relatable.
yeah,
Hey, so have you gotten any sleep lately? No.
yeah.
You have a commonality with these individuals. Yeah.
So it's hard to put that in your sales presentation, but that could be part of your sales pitch. And that could be in tandem with your sales presentation, and then that's the way to include that within your material. In terms of marketing, I'm not sure how you would apply that. Well,
Well,
you
you have, I
could
mean,
find information from them and then use that.
some clients, that I have, they have a story, and that story is the reason why they did the business and they apply the business and the way they build the business. It's sometimes it's very hard, and I always try to when I meet with my clients to try to, for branding purposes, to try to grab that story because more people can relate to it. An example of this would be for one of my state planning client that that the reason why he got into this world is like his own story where you know his parents were in Jamaica. He pretty much got a call that his dad was not doing really well. He goes over there and then he finds out that like his dad pretty much had some things that he didn't know any will or any paperwork and all that stuff. So he tells the story about the struggle of not only do I have to like run around and try to get powers of authority, power so that I can pretty much make decisions for him, making a will for him, and all these pieces that came to him, and then there are also things that his dad wanted to keep private, so he was put into a very very turbulent position where he's like, what, I think that I have now after going through this and pretty much telling their brothers, look, so dad had, this much of land, but he's going to split it this way, this way, this way, rather than all having script and him having to go through the whole struggle and all the whole thing that pretty much put him into a story that he's like, what, I don't want what I just went through. It's a problem. And I want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. I really wanted to work into state planning to make it happen. So that's a very relatable thing. You do a lot of that in marketing because then it is, as the unity of the concept is just that like a lot of people can see themselves reflected into that type of same story. Like, well, yeah, my dad didn't, make a will, so all of us, rather than being at mourning him, we had to also be worried about what are we going to do with dad, what are we going to do with his body. He just progressively get out. So if you do have a really good legit story, one of the ones that is very popular is the one from the lady who did Spanx. She pretty much said like she created Spanx because she needed it, and then she realized that like people needed it, and she actually made herself like, look, I am, I'm kind of like I'm also the member. I'm wearing them. I believe in my product. This is why I do it. I know that everybody needs it, and then you just go in with that flag.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess that's a good way to do it. There's also technologies for example, there's a company called Mutiny. Have we talked about this? Have I told you about this?
Not sure.
And it allows you to understand who's visiting the site, and based on their industry or their location, it'll change your site immediately. So if I go to your site, but I'm coming in from Colombia or whatever, then maybe it switches to Spanish. But maybe that's already
That's
happened.
a standard.
Yeah, standard. But with Mutiny, it can be like, oh, well, you're in this industry. Let's say I'm in the oil and gas, and so when I open up the page, maybe part of the lingo is the same, but then it'll say case studies. It'll talk about oil and gas. Maybe the referrals it gives you is oil and gas. Like the testimonials, it'll show you.
But you have to do like 5 different websites, so
Right.
then somebody's like,
The logo changes, so that the logos that you see are from other people in your industry, um, and they do all this automatically, so that when you can, and then that's the way of signaling and saying, I have customers like you.
no, it's extremely great. Well, I mean, with marketing, personalizing it the best way possible.
Yeah,
That's huge. I'd like to take a look at that because it is true. I mean, imagine in your business, you want to do financial, you just have your own financial vertical. Somebody from the financial lens there, they know that, oh yeah, I work with this bank, this bank, this bank.
yeah,
Somebody from renewable energy. Oh yeah, I have, we believe, Castleberry is one of the main courses, renewable energy. We work with this person, this person, this person. You can even change the colors too.
yeah. You have the testimonials. You can have everything. And I think there's obviously there must be competition as well. I know of Mutiny, but sure there are others that allow you to do that, right? And that's one way to sort of express that unity principle in your marketing materials, and personalizing that content so that it fits the audience. Um, should we go through the other ones, to the other principles? So we've done
Sure, we have time.
we did authority. Scarcity is sort of a given, right? So you don't
With the halo effect,
you cap it, right? You cap your your limit if you're B2B or if you're
and
B2C.
you create. The scarcity is the same.
Uh,
We talked about halo effect. Kind of like looking good, making everything good also makes you feel that
yeah,
these persons. Concept of wearing a suit, too. You wear
yeah,
a suit to look the best possible.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
that's
people
that.
who are raising money, stuff like that, like they'll dress up because they know, um,
Yeah.
they want to look the part. And
Well, what is it? Politicians roll up their sleeves so they look like they're always working.
yeah, yeah. So it looks like they've been working with dirt.
Yeah, they're
Well,
working hard.
yeah, and then what else? There's another one. I can't remember what it's called. Maybe you can remember, but it's if you want someone to do something, you get them to do something small first. Um, and so, for example, the example they have in the
Oh, the quid pro quo.
no, that's reciprocity. No, there's another
That's the process. Sorry.
there's another one. That's I think it's consistency is what it's called. The principle of consistency.
Okay.
I think, and if I'm wrong, sorry. But
We'll have to. We'll do the changes. We'll put it in the lines.
yeah, and so it states that if you want someone, like, people like to stay consistent with what they said, especially if it's in writing. So one of the ways I think dentists were able to, or doctors were able to get people to show up to their appointments was to have them write down, I will be here at da, 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 this date, this time. And obviously they reminded them and everything, but it was a written statement that they were going to be there. So more people complied with that. Or they wanted to get people to put up a big sign that says, drive slow. So they started with a small sticker on the window, really small. And then once you have the sticker on the window, a few months later, like, okay, well, a lot of people who have stickers also have this. Would you mind? And so they're like, okay, let's do that. Um, and and they'll and so that's something that if you want people to comply with something that you want from them, you get them to take small steps first. And this is what these big what do you call them, like these cults, these people that are able to like grab all these gathered people and put them together and stuff, have them do crazy stuff. They start small, right? These small requests, and they just get bigger and bigger. So you learn from those, but that's also applied in the business world. So if you're a marketer or a salesperson, you can probably figure out a way as well to say, okay, how do I get them to take small steps first, and then I upsell them? How do I keep them in the loop? And then
Just one of those like, I mean, but it also sounds like a whole concept of, download my free, download my free PDF that tells you how
right,
to do a free guide to do X, Y, Z. The first one is free, and then the second time it's like, okay, well, I know who they are, I kind of trust them. And then the second one is like, hey, you
yeah,
know, download the next continuation of the free PDF, but also for $5 you get this, kind
yeah.
of.
But yeah, but I think that's one way. I think the other way is also like to get them to spend like effort to do something. That makes it even stickier because then you're like, okay, there's a sunk cost. I've already spent time with these people. I've done this, I've done that.
Oh, okay.
So it can be applied like, okay, look.
Yes, I mean now it's getting to me. Do you remember the oh my god, here in the United States, you probably remember they are. And I don't think it happens anymore, but we used to receive a mail that was like, okay, so participate for it was something called home something, but it was kind of like you participated for like to win a $1 million during the Super Bowl, and they came in your house and they gave you a check and it was this thing, but they told you like, okay, so you can win $1 million, but you can increase your chances by doing these much things, and then okay, so you did that. Then the next time they came an email, they came the same letter, and then they were like, "Oh, okay, so now you have 2,000 points. Oh, you like to get 4,000 points. You get 4,000 points, you're gonna buy from this, and this."
Yeah,
And and at the end, you start. I don't remember the man. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know, but I see what you're saying. It's kind of like you're already having a consistency of portion, which is, um, I know it's the stickiness factor. Like I fly Southwest because I have points. I don't want to change
yeah.
airlines just because.
Right. Or maybe like if you're selling in B2B or marketing in B2B, you could say like, look, the first product that we're going to implement is this. It's a lot smaller. Maybe it's a trial period. You know, we're going to run this pilot program, or let me do. The thing is, once you do something for them and it's a favor that you're doing them, then reciprocity kicks in. That's a
Yeah,
different.
that was the one that I remember.
That's a different principle. But if you say like, okay, look, I'm going to do this. I'm going to build an audience. For example, for us, I'm going to build an audience for you. I'll give you the insights. But in order to build that audience, I need you to fill out this form. And the form, they have to spend time filling out the form and fill it out. And then we go build the audience. Like, those are small steps that they're taking um, in order to like achieve a bigger outcome later. This is how humans work. You're not going to trust me on day one.
No, yeah, I think I don't remember if it was continuity, but yeah, it's like consistent. I mean, it's the biggest thing about again why it's a 25-year business valuable. It's well, they're being consistent.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this experience of consistency that is just like okay, well, we do it, we do be doing it, doing it. Therefore, I know that. But yeah, but I guess to your point, to one of the things is well, it is how consistent you are to me.
Yeah, well, and I think it's about what they're doing, and they want to remain consistent with what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's why salespeople sometimes also use the same language the person's using. And so if the person says, "I want to
Oh,
buy,"
but that's the thing that said like imitate. Isn't that like imitation or like
oh,
copycatting? Or,
that's something else. So that's what do they call that? That's like when you're mirroring someone.
man.
Um, but I don't mean that. I mean more like I'm using your language because so you stated, for example, you stated you wanted to do a podcast. Do you remember yeah, I wanted to. Okay, so, based on the fact that you wanted to do a podcast, like these are the next steps we need to take in order to do that. And then in your mind, you want to stay consistent with the fact that you said you wanted to do a podcast. So I think all these principles need to be used ethically, right? But I think you need to be aware of what you're doing because sometimes we'll just do things and they're like, oh, this always works, but I don't know why. I think you should be aware so that you're not baiting people, right? Like you're not trying to get them to upgrade just to upgrade. It's good for you, not good for them, kind of thing. Like you need to like take it in steps.
well, you have that integrity factor of like, yeah, I want to sell you.
Yeah, I think you
You
need to
know,
sell people what you need to sell, and I think that's the concept I think we talked about before. There's a concept I call like the anti-selling, or the anti-sale, and it's something I learned from my dad. Actually, it was I think I told you this. I don't remember, but I remember my dad used to own sort of like a hardware store. It was like a hardware with construction materials and plumbing materials. It was, this store where people could come in and buy stuff. It was like a Home Depot, but it was smaller, obviously. But and you didn't go and pick up your stuff and just self serve. You'd have a salesperson that would actually sell you whatever it is you needed and sort of advise you. And I remember a person wanted to buy a specific type of plumbing that was made out of copper. It was like 10 times more expensive than the plastic one. And my dad would have made a killing, right? Because it was a lot. It was higher price, higher margins. Everything was better. Not just the margin, just like the overall dollar value or bolivar value, whatever it was. And I remember him stubbornly, man, telling the person, "I'm not going to sell you the copper one. I know that's the one you want, but what you've explained to me is you want this, and if that's what you want, your end result, get the plastic one. The plastic one is 10 times cheaper. It's going to last you 10 times more. It's not going to go bad. Copper is going to rust. Get that one. It's easier to manipulate. Like all these different benefits." And the guy was like, "Oh, but I want the copper one." And my dad's like, "If I sell you the copper one, you're gonna go install it, and then somebody's gonna say, 'Why did you install the copper one? Why did you do plastic? Look at all these benefits, blah blah blah. It's a lot cheaper.'" Basically, someone who knows about this stuff is gonna tell you you got
Yeah.
screwed.
The
Got
answer, yeah.
screwed. Somebody sold you something that we're supposed to sell you, and you got screwed. And the guy was still wanting to buy the copper one. And my dad was like, "Get this one. I promise you, you're gonna do a lot better if you buy the plastic one." And I remember thinking, like, wow, like that's an anti-sell.
You're fighting your own self.
Fighting the guy so that he buys the cheaper option that best suits him. And I remember thinking, like, wow, what a salesman. Because normally, first of all, it's unethical to sell them something they're not going to use or need. But aside from the ethical part, like this is a person who was saying, "I know what's best for you." It's like a doctor saying, "Don't take this medicine, take this other medicine. This is much better for you." The guy eventually relented and bought the plastic one, and then came back a few weeks later and said, "I spoke to this plumber, this one. I want to thank you. You're right. I would have installed the wrong thing." Like he came back and actually admit the fact that he was wrong.
And he has a client for life.
Life, right? But the guy was never buying anything else anywhere else because he was like, "They're going to tell me the truth. They're going to tell me whether or not I should be using that service." And
I call that the mechanic principle. Mechanic could also be like, you know what, today you really need, you need this and need this and this and this. And then you're like, okay, well, you're the expert, I am not. Yes. And then all of a sudden he can rank up the work, he can do that. It's just a matter of like, well, I am with this mechanic because I trust them. Like they have shown time and time and again that this person is not only knowledgeable, but also, they trust. And I mean, you can also, this anti-sell concept, your dad could have, this is one part, the copper versus the plastic. And then he could be like, okay, great. Then the person really comes back with a huge amount of heart and a huge amount of trust to them. And then your dad can say, okay, this time I'm going to,
oh yeah, of course,
but there's people who play that way. It's just horrible.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, but in general, like whenever you take advantage is the moment you're deciding, I don't want this client anymore. I want this client now. I'm going to eat now, but I'm not going to eat in the future. And I think that's why it just makes business sense. It's not just ethical. It makes business sense to say, I'm not going to sell you that. And I think that's something that more people should be applying. Something we do is say, look, this is a product you can use, but you're not going to be able to draw enough value from it because you're not ready yet. So I'm not going to sell you that. And that immediately puts you in a position where you're like, okay, I trust this person.
I want to add one thing to it too, which is super important, which I do with my business, with my clients all the time. So back to the person who really wanted the copper. Dude, I need to have a copper. I want a copper. I was just like, it's like, no, like this doesn't make sense for what you're doing. I do this every day. This is what I'm selling. You don't need a copper. The question is, why do you need copper? They're going to ask you, well, because, that's the one that I need. This is the one that I want to know. Why do you need copper? And then if you start and you start nibbling in it, you're going to find out that somebody mentioned to that individual that the only way to fix that was with a copper piece because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe that person who told them that it was a copper was because at that point they really needed it, or they made a mistake and they just wanted to, save face.
Yeah.
But there's always one thing with the clients too, when they get stuck in one specific thing that it's like, well, I really need to get into Pinterest. And it's like, okay, you have mentioned this 4 times. Why is it a thing that you really need to get into Pinterest? Well, because I heard from one of my best friends who also has a business, not similar to the one that I have, but that he's making money to Pinterest. Therefore, I need this. let's go ahead and do the whole explanation. If you do or you don't need, I mean, of course,
Yeah.
But there's a concept of the client is not always right,
Yeah.
or the client is probably sometimes they don't know what they really need. They just try to pretend so that.
Yeah, they're not always right, but it's just I just feel like it would be it'd just be so much easier if you really took that into account. I think for most people, because it's selling is what some people say is selling is the transfer of trust, and one way to trust a person is to really put yourself in their shoes and say, look, like I can sell you this, yes, but you're better off doing something else. Why don't you start here? Let me sell you. If you want, I can sell you a smaller package, or I recommend working with someone else. Like there's so many things that you could do. It's going to hurt you in the short term, maybe, but I promise you, it's going to really help you in the long term.
There's a joke in Spanish. When I try to say in English, is gonna butcher the whole thing, but it's about the whole trust thing where they hired this guy from Margarita into like one of those like Bass Pro Shop style of companies, and they're like, okay, well, you know what, you make commission. It's all about how much sales you make, and you're gonna be here, you're gonna be selling stuff, and then it's like, okay, so you gotta get here and sell as much stuff, sell as many people as you can, sell as much stuff as you can. So then at the end of the day, so how did your day go? And he's like, oh well, good, very very well. Well, how many sales you did? And he's like, well, actually only one sale. And the guy's like, only one sale? You can hit your numbers that way. You need to get more enthusiastic about it. What did you sold? Well, the person came here and he needed a rubber worm because he wanted to go fishing. So I sold him that, but then I asked him, so what is that? How are you going to hook that? And he says, well, I need a hook. So I sold him the hook. Well, do you have the proper hook to have that? Do you have the proper fishing pole to get this hook to get in the worm? No, I don't. So I sold him the rod. So then when I realized that he needed the rod, I was just like, okay, so where are you going to go fishing? Well, I'm going to go fishing at, this lake. Well, do you know that the sun is hot? So you need a hat. So you need a hat, then you need the clothes, then you need the clothes, and then ends up buying the boat. At the end of the whole thing is like he's just did one sale, but he did the whole boat by that whole answering of questioning, discovering. That was one of the things that I took back from working at Verizon Wireless was if you're going to do any selling, you got to really do your due diligence and discovery because sometimes it could be, as we just explained, the reason why I want copper is because somebody that I trust told me that copper is the one to go, and then you have to pretty much okay, so this is what you understand. Let me explain this, or it could just be that the person doesn't really know what they need or what they want, and then you put them in the wrong phone, and that was with Verizon. You put them in the wrong phone, and then they come back, then they're gonna be miserable, and they're gonna just be bad mouthing you because they were like, you know what, I went to Verizon and they gave me this new BlackBerry Storm when all I really wanted was
I mean,
a Motorola Razor, at that time. So
and that guy well, the story ended differently because my dad wouldn't sell him the copper, but
yeah.
had he sold him the copper, I think that guy would have been like, I got screwed. But if you asked him, you would have been like, well, but you went and asked for it. Like they sold it to you. Like that's what you want.
Yeah, he would feel
they should have stopped me. They should have said differently.
Oh yeah, they're. I mean, it's the concept of a human of being at fault and the shame that comes with it. That I was wrong. The guy told me in my face that I was wrong.
Yeah,
but I was too hard headed and too proud to take it. Yeah, you. I mean, awesome that your dad did that because then most likely, if your dad would have sold the copper and all that stuff, that person would be less likely to going back just because they don't want to go and lose faith.
Yeah. Wait, dude, I gotta go, man. Yes.
No, I think we had a great episode. So we'll end that. I have some notes for the next one.